This is Dennis with Builder Academy, brought to you by builderresources.com. In this session, I'm going to be introducing the most important documents we have in Builder Academy. These 5 documents help you manage and define the relationship you have with your construction clients. They ultimately help you manage one of the biggest risks you have in your business, client transaction risk. I'm going to be showing you exactly what I include in my client management system so you can build your own set of documents. And I'll explain exactly how I use these documents in my business so you'll know how to use them in yours. First though, let's handle a question you may be asking. Why do you need something like this client management system in your construction business? If you've been managing a construction business for any time at all, you'll probably have realized that no matter how hard you work at making the client-builder relationship run smoothly, that's not always going to be the case. We are, after all, dealing with a lot of money, trying to read the client's mind, and organizing others to work toward the common goal of fulfilling a client's dreams and expectations. Now, admittedly, sometimes it's a little like playing the children's game where you whisper a message in the ear of the person sitting next to you and it's passed around the circle, and it is often unrecognizable by the time it gets back to you. Given that, it's important to be prepared for the possibility of problems. As we go through this course, it's going to sound like I'm a very grumpy person who hates working with clients. Honestly, I love working with clients, helping them to build their dreams. But I've been in business a long time, and I've seen enough to make me wary in my dealings with clients. And the purpose of this course is to provide you with the means to go into a home building project knowing that you and your business are prepared for the good and the bad of that relationship. Sure, we'd all like to believe that every job we start will proceed smoothly, with all issues easily resolved. The problem with this philosophy is that we build houses for people. And because we're working with people, there will be problems. Some of the problems will be the result of simple misunderstandings. Some of the problems will be purposeful efforts to misrepresent. That's just the way people work. Ultimately, as a business owner, you must recognize that everyone, your clients, your vendors, your subs, and you, acts in his or her own perceived best self-interest. To protect your self-interest and that of your business, the client management documents are a set of some of the most important documents you can have in your management toolbox. The documents define the relationship with the client in a way that will help protect your business in the event of a client from hell scenario, as well as making you a better manager of client relationships on a daily basis. Just recognizing the potential for problems can go a long way toward managing the rough spots in the client-builder relationship. Client management documents, along with your contract package, provide you with the opportunity to carefully and precisely predefine your responsibilities with regard to the work that you'll be doing for a client. Establishing up front that the construction of a custom residence is a joint effort between the builder and the client is an important step. By instructing the client where their obligations and responsibilities lie in the building process, you'll be in a more defensible position when the inevitable misunderstandings arise with your buyers. Using these documents during the contracting stage, you have the opportunity to explain the initial work and materials that form a basis for your proposal, and that any change from the basis will impact the bottom line pricing of the job. You can explain that the client is going to be expected to sign off on the work at certain milestones. You can outline how and when progress payments are to be made. You can explain that a lack of action on the part of the client may result in a cessation of work on the project. You can demonstrate that you understand the complex procedures involved in building a house and that the client must participate as expected in the effort. These 5 documents represent a methodology for establishing a process for dealing with potential client problems before the problems arise. It may sound like pessimism, but it's really just good business practice. Now let's quickly introduce the documents that you'll be designing to manage the client relationship. First is the confirmation of instructions. This document replaces the change order and has a larger scope than the change order. With it, you can capture and document information about selected specifications, changes from the initial specifications, requests for additional work not included in the initial scope of work, and any other client requests pertaining to the project. The confirmation of instructions confirm the instructions from the buyer. It accurately reflects the reality that any changes from the original contract are at the request of the buyer, and it provides specific information relative to those changes and to the cost of those changes. A series of the confirmation of instructions, along with the daily progress report, which we'll discuss in another course, also enables you to follow the history of events as they unfold in the execution of a project. This feature is critically important when it comes to explaining the chronology of events to the customer, the lender, or the judge. Next is the notice of acceptance. In my experience, it's best to have several points in the construction process at which the buyer signs off on the work that has been done and agrees that the work meets expectations. The notice of acceptance accomplishes this goal. I like to have these points of substantial completion of the framing, the drywall, and the finish work, and the project. But you can use any milestones which fit your production schedule. Changes and alterations which arise at any of these inspections can be more easily accomplished and are readily assigned as changes, which would be the client's responsibility, or mistakes, which would of course be my responsibility. You don't find yourself going back into rough electrical when the cabinets are being installed, or reversing door swings after interior paint if you use this milestone process. The notice of acceptance clarifies that any client-originated changes after the substantial completion of a milestone and the accompanying notice of acceptance are going to be treated as extras and are the financial responsibility of the buyer. Importantly, the notice of acceptance sets the stage for the draw request. If the buyer accepts the milestone as complete, she should have no hesitation paying the milestone draw as outlined in the contract. If she balks at signing the notice of acceptance, then a problem exists and can be dealt with immediately. You are not put in the position of having to deal with a complaint about the framing or installation when the entire budget and more has been spent just before the final walkthrough. If you wait to handle problems until the final walkthrough, you have no leverage with the buyer because you are on the hook to your vendors and your subcontractors for the labor and materials. The buyer can just wait you out. That is an uncomfortable situation to be in. The draw request naturally follows the notice of acceptance. It is based on the payment schedule outlined in the construction contract, and it is bolstered by the fact that the client has accepted all the work which has been done prior to the notice of acceptance. The notice of acceptance, paired with the draw request, provides a very convincing case to the lender that the draw is justified and payment should be issued. Basically, the client is saying, I've approved the construction to this point, and there is no reason not to pay this requested draw. The delay notice is used to notify the client that a problem exists that is sufficiently serious that production on the project has ceased until the problem is resolved. Now, it's important to provide written notice to the client of your intent to cease work on any project, the reason for the delay, and the remedy for the problem. Should questions arise in the future regarding the construction schedule, this document will provide the information necessary to substantiate the actions taken. And then the final document is the restart notice, which offsets the delay notice. It indicates that the problem has been resolved. It also provides project restart information and summarizes the new extended completion date for the project. At this point, let me introduce a phrase I've learned to live with in my construction business. If it isn't written down, it didn't happen. You may think that you'll remember the important circumstances on a job, but you won't. And even if you are able to recite facts of the incident perfectly, it really won't matter. As evidence, a document written at the same time as the occurrence has much more weight than verbal testimony. You'll use each of these 5 forms to document what is happening on the project as it is happening. Now, I can answer that question about why you need a system to manage your relationship with your clients. When you have 3 or 10 or 20 houses going at once, you're going to have to be able to respond to your clients quickly, efficiently, and appropriately, no matter what they request. If the client wants to add or change something about the house, you'll document that request by using the confirmation of instructions. To make certain that there are no lingering problems and to get the client to commit to paying a draw, you'll use the notice of acceptance. To collect the money that is due and to keep the client, his lender, and any other interested party up to date about the finances of the project, you'll use the draw request. If the client refuses to respond, fails to fulfill her responsibilities, or postpones payment beyond an acceptable time period, and you sense that the relationship is changing for the worse, you will redefine your relationship with the delay notice. And when the problems have been resolved and you need to document your efforts to get the project back online with a new adjusted completion schedule, you will use the restart notice. These 5 client management documents that we're going to design, learn to use, and actually commit to using provide a system you can deploy and depend on to protect and explain your business processes and your actions with a client. They make it easy to keep track of your client relationship and to protect your profits and your business. That is why you need them.